All right, now it's time for an exercise. This exercise I'm going to give you is a popular interview question. So I want you to write a program that behaves like this. Here we should enter a number. If this number is divisible by 5, we get fizz. So if we run the program again and enter 10, once again, we get fizz. Now, if this number is divisible by 3, we get buzz. If this number is divisible by both 5 and 3, like 15 or 30 or whatever, we get FizzBuzz. And if this number is not divisible by 5 or 3, like 2, we get the same number printed on the terminal. So go ahead and spend 5 to 10 minutes on this exercise. You will see my solution next. All right, to read a number, first we need to use the scanner object. So scanner, we import this and instantiate it. And as you know, here we need to pass system.in to read data from the terminal. Now we print a message. So we're going to use the print method instead of print line. Here we add a label like number. And then we call scanner.nextInt to read a number. We store it in this variable, number. Okay, so the first part is done. Now we need to check to see if this number is divisible by 5 or not. So we can write an if statement like this. If number, here we use the modulus operator, which returns the remainder of a division. So we divide this by 5, and if the remainder equals 0, that means this number is divisible by 5. So we print fizz. Now, otherwise, if this number is divisible by 3, we print buzz. We need another condition. If this number is divisible by 5 and 3, so here we use the AND operator, number divisible by 3 equals 0. In this case, we want to print fizz buzz. Otherwise, we want to print the same number like this. Now, this is not the right solution. As I will show you in a second, this program has a bug, but it's a very common solution that I see amongst my students. So let's run this program and see what is wrong here. All right, here we enter 5. We get fizz, beautiful. What if we enter 10? 10 is also divisible by 5, so we get fizz. So far, so good. What about a number that is divisible by 3? We get buzz. Good. What if we enter a number that is divisible by both 5 and 3, like 15? We get fizz again. Why is that? Here's the reason. With this implementation, if we enter 15, this first condition will evaluate to true, so we get fizz. These other else clauses will be ignored, and that is why this line will not be executed. So in situations like this, you should have the most specific conditions on the top and the most generic ones on the bottom. In this case, we want to move this condition to the top. So if the number is divisible by 5 and 3, we're going to print FizzBuzz. So this is very specific. Otherwise, if the number is only divisible by 5, we print fizz. Else, if it's divisible by 3, we print buzz. And finally, if none of its conditions is true, then we print the same number. Now let's run the program one more time. So we enter 15 and we get FizzBuzz. Beautiful. So here's one way to solve this problem. Now, I have seen some people argue that we have repeated this expression twice. Number is divisible by 5. We have that here on line 12 as well as line 14. In programming, we have this concept called DRY, which is short for don't repeat yourself. So some people argue that here we have repeated this expression and this is not a good solution. Here's another way. Let me show you. So we're going to get rid of this second condition here. Instead, we're going to add a code block over here. So if the number is divisible by 5, first we check to see if the number is also divisible by 3. If that's the case, we print FizzBuzz. Otherwise, we print just fizz. Like this, okay? Now we no longer need these two lines because we already implemented this concept here. So first we check to see if the number is divisible by 5. If not, we check to see if it's divisible by 3 and otherwise. So here's another way to solve this problem. But in my opinion, this approach is kind of amateurish and ugly because these nested if-else statements are considered a bad practice. Now, this is not terribly bad, but the more you nest these if-else statements, the more confusing your code is going to be to other people. So I personally prefer the previous solution, even though we had a bit of repetition in the code. The more you program, the more you build software, the more you realize that there is no way to build ideal software. Programming and problem solving is all about trade-offs. Every solution has certain strengths and certain weaknesses. This solution doesn't have any repetition or duplication in the code, but it has a nested structure, and these nested structures make our code hard to read and understand. The previous solution had a bit of repetition, but it had a flat structure. There is no nesting here, and this code is cleaner and easier to read.